With Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 being just a month away, and it also probably being one of the most hyped mascot horror games of the year, I think it's the perfect time to go back through what we've gotten so far, and make a few predictions about what we can expect from the next chapter. As I script this, we still don't have a gameplay trailer, but honestly, since we're now in December, it could drop any day now. Despite that, I still want to use this time as an opportunity to lay out my predictions for Poppy Chapter 4. I did a video like this on Indigo Park Chapter 2 a while back, however I'm going to be changing up the format a little bit. Rather than splitting this video up into predictions for certain gameplay aspects, I'm instead going to take all of the characters you see on screen right now, and rank them on a scale of 1 to 5 based on how likely I think they are to show up in Chapter 4, with 1 being very low and 5 being an almost guaranteed appearance. Also, when Chapter 4 does release, be sure to leave a comment on whether or not I got this stuff right. With that out of the way, let's start the predictions. The first character I want to talk about is Baba Chops, who I'm giving a 4. Baba Chops is one of the many new characters introduced in the Nightmare Critters line, and their design was first shown off in Chapter 4's first teaser trailer. They seem to be the star of Nightmare Critters, or at the very least the one that Mob cares about the most. With all of this in mind, I'm only giving Baba a 4 because Mob has stated that the Nightmare Critters will not play a significant role in Chapter 4. So while Baba will definitely not be the main antagonist, I could see them having a small section of gameplay either as a bigger body or a plush toy like the trailer. So yeah, I think it's pretty likely she'll show up, but it's not guaranteed. The next character, or characters, I want to talk about are the other 7 Nightmare Critters. Yeah, I'm grouping all of these guys together because, as I stated earlier, none of them are going to play a significant role in Chapter 4 as confirmed by Mob. With that in mind, I really don't see any of these guys showing up in a significant way. I think at best we'll see them in posters, as dead plushies around the map, and they'll all probably have cardboard cutouts, but in terms of seeing them face to face, I think that's really unlikely. Because of all of this, I'm giving the rest of the critters a 2. We'll probably see them in certain ways, just not as living toys. For our next character, we have Kissy Missy, who I'm giving a 4. While Kissy had only a brief cameo in Chapter 2, she became our ally in Chapter 3 before being attacked by some unknown character at the end of the game. It seems like the goal of the chapter is to try and find Kissy Missy after this event, so I think it's pretty likely she'll show up. The only reason she doesn't get a 5 is because it's possible that she was just made part of the prototype, rather than just slightly hurt or damaged. But it's still very likely she'll come back, so she gets a 4. Our next entry is a bit strange, but is still a character I feel I should talk about, that being Huggy Wuggy. Yeah, despite Huggy seemingly dying at the end of Chapter 1, there's a pretty popular fan theory that he's actually still alive and will return at some point, most likely in Chapter 4, and there are 3 main pieces of evidence to back this up. Number 1 is that during the Chapter 4 ARG, YouTuber Sheep Rampage found a Huggy Wuggy plushie that had been torn apart and stitched back up with yarn. While at the time this was obviously meant to be teasing Yarnaby, people have speculated this means that after Huggy's fall, he was found by Yarnaby and patched up with some yarn. While this would make sense, I think it's much more likely that Huggy was just chosen as a symbol to represent Yarnaby when combined with the yarn. However, it's still possible that Huggy was healed by Yarnaby. The next piece of evidence for Huggy's return is that in the water treatment room in Chapter 2, we can find Huggy's fur and blood on the walls, which implies that he survived the fall and ended up here. This is much stronger evidence than the Huggy plush, as it's likely that Huggy ended up in this room and crawled into one of the open vents. However, I think it's highly unlikely that Huggy would actually survive this fall, not to mention that if he did somehow survive, he'd have to drag his severely injured body all the way from here down to the basement, which doesn't seem very likely. Lastly, we have another clue from the Chapter 4 ARG, where someone asked a Playtime Co. email about Huggy Wuggy, and their response was that Huggy is, quote, LOS within surface, and something will be restored. Now this is obviously an extremely vague quote, however I googled what LOS means, and while it has several meanings, its most popular use is length of stay, when referring to how long a patient stays in a medical center. So essentially what this is saying is that Huggy is temporarily staying in some surface, and will apparently be restored. Now while this certainly seems damning, this is again an extremely vague response that could honestly mean anything or just be a troll. Plus, if you really think about it, Huggy coming back wouldn't really add to the story in any meaningful way. All that would really happen is he would just die for real this time, and probably become part of the prototype. So there's not much of a reason for him to come back. Despite that though, I'm giving Huggy a 3. I think it's pretty much a 50-50 as to whether or not he'll show up. Our 6th character on the list is the Prototype, who gets an easy 5. The Prototype and Poppy are the only 2 characters that have at least been mentioned in all 3 chapters. However, while Poppy has shown up physically in all 3, the Prototype was only mentioned in Chapter 1 on the final VHS tape. However, since then, he's shown up in Chapters 2 and 3, both in the tapes and to collect the remains of the antagonists that we kill. So we'll probably end up getting a cool shot of him dragging Yarnaby away at the end of the game. We'll also probably learn a lot more about the Prototype this chapter, as assuming Poppy will have 5 chapters like the original Bendy, Mob still has a lot of ground to cover if they want to flesh out their main antagonist, so I'd say we can 100% expect him in Chapter 4. Next up is Ollie, who's a bit of an interesting case. If you don't remember, Ollie was our guide throughout all of Chapter 3, and served as a companion to help us navigate the Playcare. However, it was recently leaked that Mob copyrighted the name Playtime Assisted Companion, or PAC, which seemingly means that we're going to get a new companion for Chapter 4 that isn't Ollie. With this in mind, I think it's likely that Chapter 4 is going to start with one last call from Ollie where he fakes his death, because he's definitely the Prototype, or makes up some excuse for not being able to call us anymore before we get our new PAC device. So Ollie is going to get a 4. I think he'll probably show up briefly, but it's possible he'll just disappear and stop calling. After Ollie, we have Harley Sawyer, who I'm giving a 4. Despite it seemingly being a bit out there to suggest that Harley somehow survived the Hour of Joy, there's actually some good evidence. First, we have the Story So Far videos, which are narrated by Sawyer's voice. However, it's possible Mob Entertainment just liked the voice. Second is the fact that the Chapter 4 ARG has heavily focused on Sawyer and his past with Playtime Co., which is very suspicious. I also think it's possible that the reason Sawyer was able to survive the Hour of Joy was because he had Yarnaby, who's established that Sawyer is his entire world, was protecting Sawyer from the other experiments, or just hiding him away. The only reason Sawyer doesn't get a 5 is because it's possible that the Prototype is just mimicking his voice, which we know is a possibility now. Still though, Sawyer showing up is incredibly likely. Coming in at second to last on this list is Boxy Boo. Boxy Boo is a Poppy Playtime character who, for a while, only existed within the spin-off multiplayer game Project Playtime. However, with the release of Chapter 3, we saw several murals of Boxy Boo throughout the game, as well as his bigger body form appearing in the Hour of Joy VHS tape. I have seen some rumors that Boxy is actually dead and that his body is on the Prototype Shrine in Chapter 3. However, if you look closely, you can see that this is clearly just a toy of Boxy and not his bigger body due to its size. So Boxy Boo is most likely still alive within Playtime Co., and I think it's likely for him to show up in Chapter 4. Not only could all the imagery of him in Chapter 3 be building up to his bigger body reveal, but there's a detail about Chapter 4's flagship location, the prison, that I think everyone missed. See, throughout the prison we can see the symbol of 3 squares, one red, one blue, and one yellow. However, what you might have not noticed is that these colors line up perfectly with Boxy Boo. Yellow in the center for his star, blue around it for his box, and red for his hands, feet, and head. This could obviously just be a coincidence, but between all of that and a document talking about Boxy Boo in the ARG, I think it's extremely likely that Boxy will appear in Chapter 4. However, I'm only giving him a 3 as the evidence for him isn't super solid. The final character on this list is Catbee. Okay, I know this sounds crazy, but there is actually one piece of evidence. To celebrate Thanksgiving, Mob posted some official artwork of the Poppy cast celebrating the holiday. However, amongst characters from previous chapters and all of the currently officially revealed characters for Chapter 4, there was Catbee. This was obviously strange as Catbee has never showed up as an enemy in any of the chapters, just as a bloody toy on the floor. Because of this, I'm giving Catbee a 1. It's possible, but very unlikely that she'll show up. And that's all of the characters. I could have included a few more such as Pianosaurus, but I think those guys showing up is very obvious given their spotlight in the ARG. As of right now, we're still waiting for the gameplay trailer, however I'll probably do a separate video on that or just add in something here if it releases during this video's production. Also, I really apologize for my absence on YouTube. I was losing my creative passion a bit, but now I want to start doing more content again, so stay tuned. But that's all from me. I'm Supersonic, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.